What is up? It's AboveUp, and this is Super House of the Dead Ninjas. So if you don't know this game, it has a couple of gimmicks that are the reason that I'm not doing this live, as in, this is pre-recorded footage that I'm talking over right now. The biggest being the rage system, which is now activated. If you kill an enemy, you get a chunk of your meter. If the meter is full, you're invulnerable, and basically you can't die. The only thing you need to do is kill enemies fast enough to not let this meter deplete. Now, I can't talk while making the judgment calls, so I tried it before, it just didn't work, so I'm just pre-recording it and talking over that footage right now. There's a second mechanic that also stresses playing fast enough. It's the time meter in the bottom right. If that is empty, basically the ghost from Spelunky comes after you. Now, the gameplay itself is quite fluid and fast. It's kind of like an arcade game. It doesn't just have that arcade feeling. The game also very, very clearly tries to be like a Sega Genesis type game, which makes sense because Sega Genesis was especially, or at least Sega, the company, was especially great when it came to arcade stuff. So it's not weird for an arcadey roguelite to have Sega presentation styles. And we're back in rage mode. So a lot of times in this game, if you're not good enough, you can just spam rage and get to the end. There's a game mode that takes away rage, and it's a bitch to deal with. But in a lot of cases, if you don't have rage, you can expect to just die on repeat a lot. There's also a bunch of unlockable weapons, and I guess I'm kind of cheating because I'm using the lightsaber, which removes a lot of the traps that some enemies have. Like that enemy that I just killed, he basically releases a spike trap if you kill him normally. So here we are at like one of the bosses. It has a bunch of bosses. They can appear in a random order. Most of them aren't too hard. There's one that's kind of a bitch to deal with. But this is not one of those. Now, most of the areas are largely the same in this game, except for like color coding with walls, but I do think some of the random generation stuff, what objects appear where, are tied into the area that you're in. It just doesn't make that big a difference, especially not because you're rushing through it so fast and you have the rage mechanic. The game also has a sarcastic voice over, which is... I thought it was funny at first, but after a while it just got grating. Still, it's not too bad. It could be a lot worse. I've seen games fuck that up a lot worse. But as you can see, I don't have too much rage in this run, and stuff is hard immediately because of that. Now, I used to love this game a lot when it first came out, and I think after a month I kinda did everything there was to do and I stopped playing it. I've lost most of my skill because there is some muscle memory and skill stuff that is like deeply ingrained into this game. And after a long time of not playing, you do lose a lot of the sense of that. One thing that I did notice this time, however, is that the downward attack while jumping and moving is kind of broken because it's a hurt box all around your character. This is the boss that's actually annoying, by the way. It's mostly because this boss requires this jump system that doesn't always work for me. Like, I just did it. Like, the timing seems to be kind of finicky and I can't always pull it off. It might just be because I'm dumb. But it's not the only boss that requires you to use that. The final boss does too. But for some reason I have less issues doing it during that boss fight. And I don't know why. Now when the game starts flowing really fast, it's actually very fun to play. But again, because it's the rage system, you're pretty much invulnerable when that happens. So it almost feels like you're cheating. And it doesn't help that, like, later maps, a lot of the difficulty basically comes from gotcha moments with traps that go off after you attack something, or stuff that looks like a power-up but then turns out to be a monster when you get close to it. It's very cheap, and I never really appreciated that aspect of the game. But thankfully, the regular gameplay mode doesn't have that stuff all that much. It does have frogs, though, and frogs can go fuck themselves. I don't really like these rooms where you pick a treasure because it usually breaks your rage if you have it activated. Because there's like a long floor with nothing on it, and it tends to just disrupt your flow completely. It's supposed to be helpful with like items, but it kind of has the opposite effect on a run. Here we are at the final boss. I always find it weird that his name is like hentai. But then again, Western devs making a game with Japanese stuff. Usually this happens. As someone who actually speaks Japanese, I tend to not really appreciate it all that much. Also, this boss is kind of scummy because he'll only take close-ranged attacks, but he can randomly start charging attacks like that, and it will fuck you up when his movement just abruptly stops when you get hit just by walking into him. Now here's the final boss, his final form. I forgot most of how this fight worked. There's probably some pattern to how or when he slams the floor, and I completely don't remember it at all. I remember it coming down to luck back when I was actually decent at the game. Like, he seems to target where you're standing, but it doesn't always seem to fit. Like, sometimes he'll hit where you were a couple of seconds ago, sometimes he'll hit exactly where you are, and sometimes he'll just hit randomly. I don't think I will ever understand. See, now he actually hits exactly where I'm standing, even though that was safe the last 2 times. I don't get it. Yeah, if you want to see the actual end, play it yourself. Because this was pretty much all of the game. This was pretty much getting all the way to the final boss fight. The only thing behind that is a cutscene. And a secondary game mode, which you can also select from the menu if you've ever achieved it. Which we're gonna do now. It's Arbargus' domain.
Welcome to my
So the thing that I just mentioned with a lot of gotcha moments and stupid difficulty stuff, that's in here. This is the game mode that does most of that. I am not a fan of this game mode, to be honest. I like the regular game. This kind of feels like the arcade quarter muncher syndrome, where a game actually is trying to get all your quarters. Or alternatively, that syndrome where a roguelite, you know, it's a roguelite. It's supposed to be really hard, right? That's why people play them, right? It's supposed to be impossible. Basically, it seems like an extreme because they didn't really understand the genre that well. But, you know, if it's a side mode, which it is here, like this is not the main gameplay mode, I don't mind it as much as I would otherwise. Ah, that was dumb. And that was one of those fake lives that was there on the floor. Though it's kind of obvious with two of them right there. The game would never do that. I thought that was an enemy, but that was a circular saw, so I couldn't downward stab it. And so I died again. There's still kind of one thing that I want to show off, which is what happens when you take too long. Basically, when the timer on the bottom right is up, what happens? Because in regular play, if you've played this game more than like twice, you pretty much never see that anymore. It almost becomes like a useless feature. It's there, but God even knows why. Because the regular gameplay mechanics already force you to move as fast as possible, so you're never going to run out of time. So now we wait until the timer is done, and then we see death. Why can't I fucking hit this thing? Oh great, it can survive hits. That's great. Yeah, this game is still fun, but I feel like a lot of the genre has kind of moved on from what this game did. Like, indie games have this weird sense of dating by themselves, where they get dated at a completely absurd pace compared to the rest of the industry a lot of the time. So here's Death. This is Death. He chases you until you get another time upgrade, and then he's gone. He's not really good at his job, is he? Yeah, if you just get time upgrades, Death doesn't really do much to you. It's actually really weird the way that this was made, because I don't know, it doesn't seem like a threat with how easy to evade it is. Like, I just had to go out of my way to create a situation where he would actually chase me, because it's so uncommon for him to do so. So let's bait Death out one more time. Here he comes. So yeah, this is gonna show off another thing. When Death shows up, he just takes away your rage, so it doesn't happen anymore. And when he touches you, you just lose one life, and that's it. All those things at the top of the screen are lives, he just takes away one. So he's not even that big a threat. I don't know. I don't understand why it was balanced this way. It seems very lenient to a point where I don't even know why it's there. Like, the more I think about it, the less I understand why it's even a gameplay thing. Anyway, I think I'll just cut the video short here because nothing of interest really happens. So this was AboveUp. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see ya.